And welcome back to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Tuesday, July 9th edition of the pod, and welcome back to our summer home. Last week was all business, really buttoned up, boardroom, conference style, getting through all the different orders of business. This week, we are going to do much like Pat Verbeek and kick our feet up and enjoy the summer. Not really worry too much about anything else.
Yeah, summer's going. No sleeves on the podcast for me.
Yep.
It's a good life right now.
Yep, we will do just like Pat Verbeek and, not really worry too much about things. And that's okay. We actually do have some stuff to talk about.
We do have a little bit to talk about. And, well, I'll just say this. I was thinking about this the other day.
Uh-huh.
While most likely there's not a lot to be done, there have been times in the past where out of nowhere, something happens in the middle of summer for the Ducks. AKA the one I'm thinking of is John Klingberg happened on July 27th.
I mean, okay. So let's assume that is the thing they have in store.
I'm just saying, I'm not expecting that. But for people that would think that, 100% done, there could be something. Most likely there isn't, though.
Well, I was going to say is that even if that's the thing that we're waiting on, then we're kind of done here.
Fair enough.
We saw how that movie played out. I don't need to watch it again.
I still love that decision.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also just not sure who is the candidate for that right now.
Fair. There isn't really anyone out there to be signed necessarily that would match the John Klingberg profile.
Yeah.
That made it that far.
Mm-hmm. So
fair.
Anyway, we're already kind of veering around, but it's summertime.
That's how this episode's gonna be.
This is firmly off-season mode, but we do have a trade to talk about.
We do.
So last week, July 3rd, the day before July 4th, which hopefully everyone enjoyed their July 4th. I know Jake did, as you can see by the tank top.
I had a good time. Got some sun, went to the beach, came home and grilled.
Perfect American day.
Yep. Hope you did also.
You what?
I hope you did also. I was returning the kind comment back to you.
Yeah, I did. Didn't see any fireworks, but when you're up in a forest, you kind of are okay with that.
Yeah, probably a good call.
I don't need explosives going off above a giant tinderbox. So,
yeah.
But talking about that trade, though, the one that occurred the day before July 4th and actually during or right after development camp ended, I believe, the Ducks traded to the Detroit Red Wings Gage Alexander. So long, Gage Alexander. We hardly knew you. The goalie prospect, for those who literally maybe that's the first time you've heard this guy's name. Gage Alexander, goalie prospect, in return for Robby Fabbri and a conditional 4th-round pick. And the conditions on that are the Ducks will receive the earlier of Detroit's own 2025 4th-round pick or Boston's 2025 4th-round pick. But either way, a 4th-round pick is coming back in the next draft. So Fabri and a draft pick. That's pretty good return for a guy who was not really trending to be an NHL starter or even backup.
Yeah, for the most part, Gage Alexander here is future considerations for all intents and purposes. The Ducks now have, what? Would you say Gage Alexander was maybe 5th on the Ducks depth chart in terms of goaltending prospects?
Are we including the NHL goalies?
So let's remove those. I threw out a number, but he's behind Klang. He's behind Clara. He's behind Budiak.
Sukanik.
Behind Sukanik. So, 5th.
Yeah. Yeah, after that, I mean, did they draft any goalies this year? I feel like they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so clearly 5th. Yeah.
Clearly 5th. So you're trading your 5th best goalie prospect who, I mean, that just kind of goes to show where you ranked him at. And so he basically had no value, was essentially future considerations. This deal is more so just Robby Fabbri, and the Ducks get a conditional 4th-round pick to take on Robby Fabbri.
And that's the thing, is that so Robby Fabbri has a year left on his contract at $4 million cap hit, and the Red Wings, I'm assuming wanting to make space, basically paid the Ducks to take on that contract. That's really all that there is to this trade in terms of the value proposition. But of course, from the Duck side, though, I mean, you get a draft pick, which 4th-round pick, not terrible. And you also get an NHL player who, I mean, has had a pretty, I don't want to say significant role with the Red Wings, but like has had a track record with the Red Wings, scored 18 goals for them last season, has dealt with injury troubles over the last few years, but is a guy who was once really well thought of. If you think back to his Blues days,
Yeah.
they add a piece. I mean, it's not a sexy piece. It's not a sexy trade. It's kind of like the opposite of that, but it's a nice little bit of work from Pat Verbeek.
Well, and the other part of this that you didn't mention is by taking on that $4 million, the Ducks are now above the cap floor, which there was a lot of, I think, worrying about last week. But in reality, this type of deal was easily out there to be had with teams kind of being tight to the cap. And so with this deal, if anyone was worried about the Ducks not hitting the cap floor and the ramifications of that, this deal on its own put the Ducks above the cap floor right then and there. But I think you kind of nailed the deal on its head, though, that you're kind of taking a bit of a flyer on a guy that could be a good bottom six piece if all things go right. He's someone that underlying metrics have not looked great for him over the last couple of seasons, but he is someone that has been able to put the puck in the back of the net at a relatively high shooting percentage for the course of his career. He's averaging over his career 14% shooting percentage, 18 goals, like you mentioned last year, and was kind of really porous defensively, but was able to generate some offense for the team, both from a goal generation perspective and from an on-ice play perspective. And so while that's not ideal, being poor defensively like that, he does add offense to that bottom six. He adds offense to what is likely going to be a fourth line role. That is where I kind of see him, maybe third line winger.
Yeah, I don't know about fourth line.
We'll see. We'll get into that. But
he was not a fourth liner for the Red Wings, though.
Wasn't the line with Sprong of their fourth line?
Well, anyway, I just watched a game where he was playing with Kane, and that was like at the end of the season.
Okay, so, his most common line mates were like Daniel Sprong, and I need to look up who was the third person on that. But Daniel Sprong with a center kind of switched in there, were his most common line mates last season. And as far as I can recall, Daniel Sprong was a fourth liner on Detroit.
He averaged just about 13 minutes of ice time. So that's like fringe, somewhere between fourth line and third line.
Yeah,
The season prior, he was playing 16 minutes. Like he's actually this was the lowest ice time of his career since basically his third season in the league. So interesting that they kind of bumped him down. But to your point, like that's kind of the role he was in. And there seems to be some potential that he could play further up in the lineup.
Yeah. So I have it up right now. His most common line mates were Daniel Sprong and Christian Fischer, and then the next one was Daniel Sprong and Joe Veleno.
Yeah.
And then after that was Christian Fischer and Joe Veleno. So I believe those were the fourth liners. Don't quote me. I don't know the Red Wings lineup that well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think third line, potentially he could be at. Fourth line, potentially he could be at. But I mean, Pat Verbeek did say he wanted to provide goal scoring, and even with somewhat porous metrics, he did score. And so this provides a bit more of a goal-scoring threat from that bottom six perspective. And while not great defensively, he is going to be an improvement, I think, on what was there. Like if you put him in the lineup and as a result, Ross Johnston comes out, that is an improvement for this team. And not a significant one, but one that does help.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking through some of their lineups from the end of the season, and it seems like he was on the third line to end the season.
Okay.
So kind of toggled between fourth line and third line.
Which could be the case with the Ducks also, depending on if they see Sam Colangelo being on this team and want him in a third line role. If Nikita Nesterenko, similar situation. And so I think it's going to be a fluid situation with Fabri, whether he's on the third line or fourth line.
Yeah, like I think that's he's not going to be in the top six. I think that that we can comfortably rule out, but he's an interesting player, though. You've kind of touched on it a little bit, but the underlying numbers paint the picture of a guy who's just kind of a negative at 5-on-5. But I do think that part of this is that the Red Wings were just terrible at 5-on-5 last season.
Fair.
And I do think that when you're a player of his stature, meaning a fourth line to third line guy, I feel like those are the guys who get impacted by the team's overall quality the most. Like they're not out there driving play. They're just kind of out there to play the system, and get off the ice. Like it's that simple. And I think with Fabri, again, I'm not trying to make the case that there's like this dynamic two-way force waiting to be uncovered by the Ducks, but I think he could be a little bit better than we're expecting. And if you kind of rewind to a couple seasons ago, especially looking at the track data, I think he was a much better player. And so maybe, hopefully, with some health for him again this season with the Ducks resurgent team, hopefully, maybe that there's a little bit more that he can give. But despite all of those foibles defensively, like you said, he has shown an ability to shoot the puck pretty well. You know, he can shoot it. He's a finisher, and he's also got pretty good hands. And so just kind of watching back some of his, like I was saying, some of his shifts, like he is just not a good skater. Like he is not one of those guys who's like a worker bee on the third or fourth line, but has some skill. You know, you kind of go back, even watch him his highlights. Like he can finish plays, and he's not necessarily a finisher in the sense of like a Frank Vetrano, who's finishing it with a shot, but kind of with his hands or a quick release. I almost liken him to Frank Vetrano if Frank Vetrano, instead of being a shooter, was like a stick handler. Like he's just not really going to bring a whole lot defensively, but he can bring you a little something, and in the right situation can maybe be a plus. So they just got another one of those guys.
Which, if he's in the bottom six, like I think Frank Vetrano, you and I, our issue was probably more so with the fact of how much he was playing and how much of a negative that was defensively. I think Vetrano put in a third line role where he can be sheltered a bit more defensively, not going up against higher in the lineup type of guys on the other team. That's a good situation for Frank Vetrano, especially at his cap hit. I think a Robby Fabbri in a similar situation could benefit the Ducks significantly. And one other thing I want to mention with him is looking at his numbers from the Red Wings is that he did pretty well in the power play. Like you look at his metrics from the power play, just from a underlying metric perspective, he really did a good job of driving offensive chances for them. And then in addition to that, just kind of looking at goals and assists and just production on the power play, he had 5 power play goals last season and 7 power play assists for what would that be? 12 power play points for a bottom 6 player. Like that's not horrible production from that perspective. And so this could be a guy that's brought in and maybe plays on the second power play unit and helps out that a bit also with bringing in Rich Clune and having different things to try to improve the power play.
Yeah, he was clearly on their second unit, but he did get power play time on that Red Wings team. Like he was within that second unit, and if he's a guy who you can kind of just plug in and maybe be a little bit of a finisher, guy who can make plays in tight, that can be an added value for this Ducks team because they need help on the power play from every angle. Like it's not just about let's just roll out the first unit. It's like, okay, well, the first unit is going to come off the ice at some point. We don't really know how Rich Clune is going to use those guys, but assuming that he kind of leans more into the first unit, you still need a second unit that can do something. Like you're not expecting them to be an elite grouping out there, but if you can have a Robby Fabbri who can add a little bit of playmaking, that doesn't hurt. So this is like the fringiest of fringe moves, but it's fine. Like I think that what's hard with moves like this is that everyone is coming off of seeing Pat Verbeek do nothing on day one of free agency. And so moves like this, which like we just talked about, are good value plays, they kind of get graded on a harsher curve. And maybe people are like, well, this isn't enough. This is enough. And look, I'm not here to tell you that this move is enough, but I think just judging it on its own merits, it's a fine move.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to put it is it's a no risk move from the roster perspective. You're getting paid to take on a player, and there is some potential for this player to be a decent add or plus to your lineup. Like, I think there's nobody that would say Ross Johnston will be better than Robby Fabbri next season. And so from that perspective, you are improving this team by adding him into the lineup and potentially removing Ross Johnston from it. And so you're getting paid to improve your team. You need to take on money to hit the cap floor. Like this is a savvy move by Pat Verbeek, a solid move by Pat Verbeek. And probably the main issue that you're going to run into is exactly like what you said, that if there had been a bigger move to happen last week, something like, let's just say, for instance, even though we talked about the issues with that Steven Stamkos contract, the issues with the Jonathan Marchessault contract. If the Ducks had signed one of those two, then we'd look at this deal as just like a win. There wouldn't kind of be any unmet expectations and being like, oh, well, he's just done nothing to improve the team. You'd kind of just be looking at this, okay, improve the top six, improve the defense, and improve the bottom six. Really great offseason. But because you haven't hit that top six improvement, then this is just kind of viewed on this negative curve. And I get it from fans. I get it from people. But on its own, in a vacuum, this is a good move that does, I think, improve the Ducks roster next season. But it's not a needle mover necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, what round was Gage Alexander drafted in? I mean, he was a 5th round pick in 2021, 140th overall. They turned that guy into a higher draft pick, a 4th rounder, and a roster player who, I mean, again, I hate to bring this up, but they could trade him at the trade deadline if things are not going well. So they could maybe get another pick on top of him. Like if you turn Gage Alexander into like 2 4th round picks, again, nobody is going to get out of their seat and start cheering at Honda Center because of this, but it's a nice little move. Like it's how you try to maximize value.
Well, yeah, and it's utilizing cap space as an asset because it is an asset. It's something that should be utilized, whether it's being able to go sign players because you have the cap space, whether it is utilizing it in this way and weaponizing it to get a pick and get a player. And there very well may be another trade like this coming because there are teams that are tight to the cap still, and the Ducks Washington is tight to the cap. And the Ducks still have, let's see, they now don't have the lowest or the most cap space. They have the second most. The Flames have the most currently. But the Ducks are currently sitting at 20.94 mil in cap space. And they have, let me see, I think they just have Jackson Lacombe to sign. Like, yeah, that's it.
It almost feels like Fabbri went from, I'm either going to spend a lot on these big name guys, or I'm just going to scrape around the edges and not really commit to anyone and give myself as much financial flexibility long term or even medium term.
It's not a horrible decision, right? If you if you have the guys, let's just say he really thought that Marchessault and Stamkos, because we have confirmation that both those guys, the Ducks were in on both those guys, that he had full confirmation that those were the two guys needed for this team. And he didn't think that the other guys were, and he didn't want to hamstring himself because the downside with July 1 is, yes, you can get out of deals by trading them, but it does hamstring you because you have to make some moves to get around it. And maybe he viewed having the cap space as being a bigger asset for him going into future off seasons, going into new contract signings, things like that. And he would prefer, it was basically option 1, Stamkos, or option 2, Marchessault, or flip them. And then option 3, keep cap space available for whatever could come up in the future. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that stance, but I think that could be kind of where this ended up at.
Yeah, I think that, we've kind of derided Fabbri for not having a plan B. This could be the plan B. Yeah. This could have been the thought process all along. And I'm with you. I don't agree with it. I think that there's like a middle ground here of like, it's not big name splash signing or just these fringe moves. It could have been like plan A, those top guys, plan B, one of these middle 6 pieces that we saw going on day 1. And then you get to this point. Maybe that they tried to do that and maybe they never got there. Like there's a lot of missing information here. Spinning this forward though. Yeah, I do have a couple of iterations of the Ducks forward group that I want to throw at you because for all intents and purposes, unless there's another trade coming, the Ducks have like 14 forwards that they could have in their, just on their roster to start next season. Like they have quite a few guys already to fill all those slots. So here's what I'm going to throw at you. I'm going to throw at you 2 different iterations, and you tell me what you think. I'll just give you iteration number 1, which is my preferred route.
Okay.
So line 1, left wing Alex Killorn, center Leo Carlsson, right wing Cutter Gauthier, and you can flip those wings. I may have gotten those backwards, but Gauthier, Killorn, Carlsson, line 1. Second line, Vatrano, Zegras, Terry. Third line, Fabri, McTavish, Strome. Fourth line, Harkins, Lundestrom, Leeson. Thoughts?
Harkins, Lundestrom, Leeson.
So that means no Nestorenko, no Regenda, and no Johnston.
No Colangelo either.
And no Colangelo, and no Brock McGinn, who is still out
I keep, yeah.
there.
Somehow I forget he's here, and yet I still want to see him play more.
Well, the idea is like this has to be somewhat realistic. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to load up on young guys necessarily.
I don't know how much I love that. I think the thought of having Vetrano with Terry and Zegras is enticing to me, just because of how great both Terry and Zegras are playing. Terry and Zegras can play off each other so well. Their interchange, I don't think it's talked enough about as having a very, very good interchange off each other, reading off each other. And it does feel like when Terry and Zegras plays together and Terry is taken off that line, there's not someone that he can really feed off of in the same way that him and Zegras can. And by having a Vetrano there, you're just kind of having almost in some ways a floater to just find open space for them to find and shoot. And so I don't mind that necessarily. I don't love the defensive impacts that will be there. But
well, you have Troy Terry there, who presumably can drive a line.
Correct.
So
correct. And Zegras did improve defensively last season. So I think that could work. The third line was what? Fabri, McTavish, Strome.
Yep.
I don't love that.
Okay.
And the reason I don't love that is that I think, first off, McTavish's strengths are offense.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're putting him with, granted, Fabri is a finisher like we talked about, and Strome he can give and go off of, but you're not giving other guys that can also help drive the line. And the biggest flaw in Mason McTavish's game last season was defensively. He would get lost in his own zone, and you need someone on a line with him. And maybe what you're thinking with this line is that he's going to improve defensively over summer. But I would much prefer having someone that can cover for him better than a Ryan Strome or a Robby Fabbri, because neither of them are that great in their own zone either. And so I think that is kind of my bigger issue there, because while it is a third line role and that will help, it feels in some ways like you're mitigating Mason McTavish a bit there and also not providing him with the support he needs defensively.
Well, let me ask you this. What is the alternative if you want McTavish on the third line? Like, do you put Leeson instead of Fabri? Do you put there's not a lot to choose from.
No,
and like realistically, this is the lowest Strome is going to play in the lineup. Like you could flip Vetrano and Strome, but you kind of run into the
maybe you flip
issue.
Fabri and Lundestrom.
Well, Fabri's a winger.
I'm trying to figure out who will center the fourth line. Maybe you call up a Nathan Gaucher.
Also, personally, I would rather see Fabri there than Lundestrom. Like, here's the thing. Here's my thing on this. I just think that there's no perfect solution for the Ducks. Sure. And I have another iteration I'm going to throw at you.
I think I'll like the second iteration more.
I don't know if you will actually, but
okay.
but staying on this, I just think that at least this way, you have guys who can bring offense on each line. Like at some point, if Mason McTavish is who we think he is, in a third line role with NHL veterans who are not terrible, he should be able to like swim instead of sink, right? Like I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation, especially in that third line role. And then again, like the alternative of not having him there looks a lot funkier to me.
The only thing I come back to on that point though is that
like you're kind of hanging on to priors, and it's like you have to assume, I'm not just saying you, but like in general, the assumptions we have about each player are based off what we've seen the last couple of years. And it's like at some point you have to bank on that changing. Like the overall team environment has to get better. The overall strategy approach has to get the players. McTavish has to get better. So yes, it's not perfect. I agree that there are definitely imperfections, but I mean, you kind of got to work with what you got.
So here's the only issue I have with that primarily is I come back to, I think the Twins Evolving Wild found this, is that quality of teammates is way more important than quality of competition.
But
quality
Ryan Strome isn't bad.
He's not great either.
I thought Ryan Strome looked good in a third line role last season. Like I thought that's when he was at his best, honestly.
I don't disagree, but I would still say that Ryan Strome is the lowest of that group minus Robby Fabbri.
I mean, I think Ryan Strome is way better than Robby Fabbri.
No. Sorry. What I meant by that was out of that top 9 grouping minus Robby Fabbri, Ryan Strome is the lowest in terms of the quality out of that group.
I think he might be better than Vetrano. Just like overall. I think Vetrano is more problematic on that line than Strome is.
On which line? The Zegras line or
On
the...
the third line. Like, I don't think that Strome had the like brain farts and meltdowns that Vetrano had
So
last season.
I'm not even talking about problematic from that perspective and brain farts. I'm kind of just talking about surrounding McTavish with other high quality players so that he can thrive. I
But
think
is there a giant gap though between Vetrano and Strome in that regard? Because
no,
you're not putting Troy Terry on the third line. Is
but
kind of what I'm saying.
there is a giant gap between, and maybe you'll have this. I think just putting Zegras and Terry with McTavish, there is a massive gap between Strome and Fabri and Zegras and Terry.
Okay. So moving on to the next version then.
Okay.
Version 2. So line 1 stays the same. Killorn, Karlsson, Gauthier. I'm kind of surprised you have nothing on that.
I think it's a good line. There's really nothing to add there. That I think is what they're going to go with.
I mean, you have to hope that that's a good first line.
Well, they wanted Gauthier with Karlsson, it seemed like, at the end of the season, and same thing with Killorn with Karlsson. Like, that felt like a pairing there, and then it felt like they wanted Gauthier and Karlsson to be together. So I don't have an issue with that line. I don't know if that's a first line quality or a quality first line in the NHL. I think that just from a quality perspective is closer to a second line. And so I think that the first line is hopefully what you're going to say next.
I mean, if Killorn, Karlsson, Gauthier is playing at a second line level next season, that honestly is a win for the Ducks.
Yes.
Like, just a true, because Gauthier is a rookie. I mean, we actually have no idea what he's going to look like over 82 games.
Yep.
Like, he's never done it. I think he's even talked about, like, he's never played that many games in a season. Karlsson, year 2. Killorn, there's kind of a downslope there for him. So, like, it's all up in the air. But I think that that's the best you can come up with for line 1. And arguably, this line 2 should be line 1. So Trevor Zegras on the wing, Mason McTavish at center, and Troy Terry on the right wing.
Yep.
I mean, that to me is probably your first line.
Yep.
But that's assuming that Mason McTavish takes a step forward.
The line numbering, I think, can be swapped around. I think that that's not a hard and fast thing in this conversation. But
well, I guess for that to be your best line, I think McTavish needs to show more. And he might, and maybe that's the position in which he will.
So, as of right now, do you think that would be the best line?
I think Leo Carlsson is just so much better than Mason McTavish that it kind of counteracts the. And my other thing is, I don't think Zegras is as good on the wing, so I would have the Carlsson line above them.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would swap. I think what you could do is, you could realistically have Zegras playing center in transition. And
but that's not like easy to do though. Like,
I mean, that's kind of what they've done when he's played at center though, even.
But that's in the D zone. Like, I just don't think when they're exiting the zone, he is clearly a winger. Like, he's on the wall. He just kind of one touches it into the middle to whoever's coming up with speed. And then when you get in the offensive zone, maybe there's a little more freedom there. But anyway, that's your top 6.
Yeah.
And then the bottom 6, it's just, I don't know, Fabri on the left, Strome in the middle, Vetrano on the wing. That's your third line. And then Harkins, Lundestrom, Leeson. That bottom 6 is just like, I don't want to say bad, but flirting with bad.
I think it depends on what you get from Strome and Vetrano in a third line role.
Fair.
Because while I know I had said quality of competition is not as important as quality of teammates, quality of competition does play a part somewhat in this. And if they are no longer facing higher end talent, maybe they're not going to get caught as much defensively. Maybe they'll be able to spend more time in the offensive zone. In some ways, I would actually really like to see a better defensive player than Robby Fabbri there, because you already have 2 guys that are, if anything, better offensively than they are defensively. I'd rather stick, maybe Jansen Harkins. I mean, we just don't know that much about him.
I'd put Leeson before Harkins, personally.
Yeah, you could put Leeson there and then put Fabri on the fourth line as a result of that. And so you have Leeson, Strome, Vetrano. And so I think the hope there is that in a fourth line role, or sorry, not fourth line, in a third line role, Leeson, Strome, Vetrano can play in the offensive zone more than they would be defending as compared to if they were playing higher up talent. And if Vetrano can find a way to score you 20 goals in a third line role, that is a good end product, as long as they are not giving all of that back.
I don't think he's getting 20 in that role, personally. Because I'm just assuming he won't be getting the power play time. He will anymore.
I mean, he might not be getting that power play time anymore, anyways.
That's what I'm saying though. Like without that, with on this line, I just don't see where the 20 is going to come from. But maybe he does it. What I don't like about this lineup is that Trevor Zegras is on the wing. I mean, that's my number one hangup.
Yeah, but we talked about this last season a bunch, and like, especially with Zegras and McTavish, right? I think we've had this conversation. I think you and I both came to the conclusion of it doesn't really matter. Get him with better players, and the fact of it doesn't matter if he's on the center or wing, and that's become a bit of an overblown conversation in some ways. There are some things that are completely relevant to the discussion, but if he's on the wing to play with McTavish and Terry, then that's a different conversation than him being on the wing to play with Ryan Strome as his center. Like
yeah,
and the other, there was something else I was going to say about this, but now it's escaping me completely with this.
Well,
So
I'll jump in and say this.
Yeah.
I think that there's two ways to look at this conversation. One is that, yes, Trevor Zegras is fine on the wing. He's not like a bad player on the wing. He's a smart hockey player. He's skilled. He can get it
back
done.
To me when you're done.
But I think that that's kind of like missing the point that I think he's at his best at center. Like I think where he's at his most explosive, his most dynamic offensively is still at center. And I think we kind of saw that play out like over the course of the season. Like on the wing, he was good. He was fine. He made plays. He was still Trevor Zegras, but it just it never had the same pop. And I just think that I would rather see him somewhere where he can really be optimized as opposed to like get by.
So, all right. So here's what I was going to say and what has come back to me. Trevor Zegras had a quote early on in the season. I don't know if you remember this completely, but it was basically saying that he's never played on wing with a center like a Mason McTavish, where he can think like that player and get.
I think you're talking about Leo Carlson.
No, I think he said it about Mason McTavish.
He didn't.
He said it. It was like in relation to both of them. I think.
No, it was about Carlson.
It was about both.
I'm 99% sure.
It was about both, or it was about McTavish, because he did mention Mason McTavish in that quote.
Yeah, but McTavish is not getting praised for his hockey sense. I'm just going to put that out there.
I'm going to try to find this. We'll see if I can.
Okay.
Well,
I'm very confident you're wrong.
But more or less, he had said he had never played with a center like a McTavish or like a Carlson or something along those lines. And so I think, well, yes, I think he's better at center than on wing. I think that we've really only seen him play wing with like an Adam Henrique for the most part. We saw a little bit with Leo Carlson before he got hurt last season, but we haven't seen him with a center like this where he can read off that player in some ways.
I mean, we have seen it. Like we've literally, you just said we saw it. We saw him with Leo Carlson last season.
I guess my point is that we haven't seen it consistently. Sorry, I should have added consistently, because when we saw him on wing consistently, it was early on in his career, and it was mainly with like an Adam Henrique as a center.
Played. I disagree with that completely. He played well on the wing last season. He was put in good spots playing with Leo Carlson, and like I said, I think that he can be good on the wing, and he has been good on the wing. It's just, again, it's judging it from a different curve. The curve I'm looking at it is what is actually going to unleash his potential the most. And I think that being in the center of the action and really driving the play through the middle, that's just where he shines. Because, I mean, he's just not a guy who's going to be really effective along as effective, I should say, along the boards, protecting the puck. Honestly, if anyone should shift to the wing between him or McTavish, it should be McTavish.
Oh, I agree. Because
McTavish has the kind of elite wall skills and, winger skills that I think would really work. Whereas Zegras, tight spaces, getting around guys, that's not necessarily his forte. He likes to attack with speed up the middle, attacking space. That's really where he shines, where he can just manipulate defenders. And then when things kind of bog up on the cycle, yeah, he can play with a Leo Carlson. And I distinctly remember that quote, and I don't think that that's wrong. But again, I want to see him in the best situation possible. And I don't think that's it. And again, this is not to say that if he gets shifted to the wing, it's this death knell for his career and that all things are going to go wrong. It's just a matter of kind of projection for me.
I'm searching for this article and I cannot find it.
I think people are disagreeing with you in our chat that it was about Carlson.
Maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have Nisrina has said. Remember, Z said that about Leo.
So it's 2-1.
2-1. I mean, we'll see. If I can ever find it, but like Sparkman brings up, Zegras, Carlson, Terry dominated that game against Arizona.
I agree. They played well.
Yeah.
Like I completely not disputing that whatsoever. No one could dispute that they look good.
Yeah. So I think that going back to kind of the original purpose of this conversation between those two lineups, I guess it's a conversation of whether you want to spread it out more or load up a top 6 and have a bottom 6 that maybe is a little bit worse. But I think that in reality, by doing this, you have a top line in Zegras, McTavish, Terry. Like that is a number 1 line in the NHL. Maybe not a top end one because you don't have an elite player in the NHL as of right now in that.
Here's my confusion with your statement.
Okay.
If you're of the opinion that McTavish had all these weaknesses defensively and we're not sure what he's going to be, how can you say that that's an elite line if he's at the center of it?
Well, because I think Zegras and Terry are that good, and I think McTavish is a bigger boost to that line than a Frank Vetrano is offensively.
Okay. So it's the sum of the pieces.
The sum of the pieces gets you there. I think Zegras and Terry, I think with Vetrano, they would still be good. I think Mason McTavish would work better with them than a Frank Vetrano does. I think Mason McTavish still has the shot that a Frank Vetrano does, but he's also able to get out in transition. He does have better awareness in the offensive zone than a Frank Vetrano does.
I think that Zegras and Terry have shown so much chemistry together in the past with Zegras at center that they've made guys like Max Comtois look good. And I think Frank Vetrano is a much, much better player than Max Comtois. Yeah. So, he kind of brings that forechecking element, the shot. Like, I think that they would work just fine.
No,
with that version.
I agree. It's the conversation though about whether you load it up or you spread it out more.
I like the spread out version because I just think McTavish. I think he can thrive in that third line. Because again, calling it a third line, it makes it sound kind of punitive, but it's not. Like it's really a top 9, and so you're more of like in the middle 6. Both of those lines can be impactful at any given moment. I mean, it would really be awesome if they had one more top 9 forward that you would feel good about because the options are not great. And I think that's part of this conversation. One thing I wanted to ask you though, is like of the guy, like, so I've clearly sidelined a few players. I mean, Regenda, Johnston, Colangelo, Nestorenko. Is there anyone that you think actually will be in the lineup consistently of those guys, in the early parts of the season, we'll call it?
I mean, it's so tough to say because I think we could, like, you see Sam Colangelo play at the end of last year, and is it going to be a situation where he impressed Greg Cronin enough with this end of season play to be able to get in the lineup more? Or is it more of a Nikita Nestorenko where they ended up doing that, got him to sign his contract, and now next season he's going to have his first full pro season under his belt playing in the AHL? And so my gut tells me Sam Colangelo out of those guys, but I mean, it's really a crapshoot, honestly. Like, I don't think Jansen Harkins, while you and I both like him, is a lock to be in this lineup completely every night. I mean, Brock McGinn. I think Brock McGinn has a decent shot to be in the lineup on most nights. Like, that's a guy that helps out your fourth line also. And so I think there's going to be a whole lot of switching around. I
think Fabri's in the lineup. I think
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the other part about the Robby Fabbri conversation that we didn't have is that he hasn't really been able to stay healthy through the course of a season.
At all.
Like, last season was the most games played he's had in his career outside of his first season in St. Louis, and he played 68 games. So hopefully he can play a decent amount there also, but... I
actually don't know if those were like healthy scratches or not, or if he got hurt. Don't know, but
for sure in the years prior, he's
never been healthy. Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't really know how much I can really say who's going to play out of that. The one thing I come back to, and I know I said this all of last season, but I just don't know how Ross Johnston is on this team.
He's still here. Like, he's going to be in the lineup. It's very possible.
I don't know how he was not put on waivers out of camp. I just don't get it. I don't know.
Out of last year's camp.
I mean, he was
You,
put on waivers out of last year's camp.
you've been on this soapbox for a lot. Like you're coming up on a year now.
Well, I thought there was no way that Max Jones, and like granted the injuries ended up causing all of this, but I thought fully healthy there was no way that they would waive someone before on that lineup last season before Ross Johnston. And I mean, it turns out that they ended up not qualifying 2 of those, so maybe they did in that way. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Can't kill him.
Yeah. So we'll see anywhere. There. But actually Daniel Lowry brought up in our YouTube chat.
Carson Meyer? We haven't even talked about Carson Meyer.
I have no thoughts on Carson Meyer. There's no notes. No notes.
The Ducks also signed him for a 1-year deal, $775K. He was an AHLer primarily last season. Played 14 games for the Blue Jackets, scored 22 goals in 55 games in the AHL, which is pretty respectable. But he's been an AHLer now for his entire career, essentially. But he is 26, going to be 27 next month. So that feels like a guy who's going to be playing in San Diego.
Yeah,
time to learn San Diego ease.
I mean, the Goals lost a few players. Didn't Andrew Agozzino go somewhere else or something like that? Like,
sure.
Like there are some guys that are leaving.
Can't say I've paid attention.
I don't think Chase DeLeo has signed yet, so I think they just need bodies down there. So we'll have to see with that and how. I
can't believe we went 42 minutes without discussing Carson Meyer.
Yeah,
really disappointed.
Daniel Lowry brought up though one of the only names I feel like that's out there that maybe they'd bring in, but I don't know if he would fit as an extra top 9 guy. But James Van Riemsdyk.
I mean, what are you going to sign him for? Like contract, like a 1-year deal.
A 1-year deal.
Like 1 year, $1 million. Is that? I don't know. Like, is he really going to make your bottom 6 that much better?
I mean, with Tyler Johnson.
I mean, Tyler Johnson is the one that would make a lot of sense to me. That's the one that I keep circling back to. I just have no idea. I have no idea how he's not signed yet, personally. Maybe I'm just missing something here. Maybe he's waiting on the Blackhawks to sign him again. But
Kevin LeBanc? I now just have the UFA list open.
I don't think the Ducks are going to be interested in Kevin LeBanc.
Mike Hoffman.
No. I mean, you're naming guys that Fabri and Greg Cronin would literally
I know.
Like they would prefer to, I don't know, watch, I don't know whatever the expression is, but they do not want players like that.
Daniel Sprong.
Again, like, notice that there's a trend here. Guys who don't have the best reputation.
Daniel Sprong would actually be a great addition for the top 9.
Well, okay, so Tyler Johnson, though, I mean, scored 17 goals last season, and he is a center. Yes, doesn't meet the Verbeek height limit at 5'8", but him as the third line center, maybe I'm
Tampa
just like
connection.
Maybe I'm just like misremembering his impact, which I'm scrambling to pull up right now. But like that would really kind of like balance out the lineup to me if he's your 3 seat. And predictably, his numbers were god awful last season, but that's playing
Not
for
good.
Chicago. Like, should I just throw out all the Chicago numbers?
No, you can't.
That's 3 years of data.
He was also playing elevated in that lineup, though.
Yeah, like in a third line center role, I feel like he would be an improvement. Do you think he'd be an improvement over Ryan Strome as a third line center?
Probably.
I guess put a different way, is a line of, let's say, Tyler Johnson in the middle with Strome and Vetrano on the wings a better third line
than Fabri there? Yes.
Fabri or just whoever they could put there.
Yes.
That's kind of my thought as well. And I just don't feel like he would cost you a whole lot either.
Yeah, I mean, he had a massive fall off last season, so maybe.
But again, playing for a crap team. Like, I just feel like that has to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, and then that puts Lundestrom in the 4th line center role, which is where he should be. Like that, like Isaac Lundestrom at his best should be a 4th line center.
I think that whatever you do, you really need to keep Lundestrom off the third line. Like, if he is on your third line, you are just in so much trouble. Even as a winger, like, he is just he's just not bringing anything offensively. You need a little something more. So, yeah, I mean, looking back at Tyler Johnson's tracking numbers from a couple of years ago, they weren't bad. I mean, he did some things offensively, but I don't know. Maybe I oversold that one. Maybe it's just the name brand. But
It's
again, put him in a
like,
better environment, and I think he could be better.
I think that's the hope there.
Yeah.
I guess the you don't really want to sign him for that long or that much.
Oh, it'd be like a year or two at most.
Yeah.
Like a very
Like
most.
like I don't think it's that huge of an improvement, but it does improve off of what they have. I guess.
Well, also, the thing to keep in mind is like part of it too is just pushing guys down. You know, making it that you don't have like a Robby Fabbri relying on him on your third line. Like that's part of the equation there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but this is the thing though. I mean, when you look at the remaining free agents, every guy has some sort of hang up. You know, whether it's, I mean, I personally love Daniel Sprong, but I just don't think the Ducks definitely don't love Daniel Sprong. So he's not an option. Kevin LeBanc, I don't know what the hell's going to happen there. Mike Hoffman, like there's a 0% chance they would be interested in a guy like Mike Hoffman. And then you just go down the list and it's just, you can see it really dwindle really fast. Like Dominic Kubalik, wasn't there like a rumor the Ducks were interested in him at one point?
Yeah, that rings a bell, but it was like was it as a free agent signing or a trade? I can't remember.
Kubalik?
Ah,
Are we on that? Are we on that train?
Like, I think realistically where I'm at is, yes, signing a Tyler Johnson could be good. What I would much rather see happen is that's still a fringe move. What this team needs is a trade to really improve the top six. Whether that is going out and getting a Rucker McGroarty, whether that's going out and somehow getting a Martin Necas, whether... I don't know how I'd feel about this. I think I'm in the no camp, but a name that's thrown out there a bunch when it comes to this is a Patrick Laine. I don't see Pat Verbeek doing that.
That almost feels like making a move to make a move. Like, because that is a total flyer.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got him for basically nothing, would you do it?
Sure. I honestly, even then, I'm not, because like, where do you play him? Where do you play him in this lineup?
I mean, you could basically do what you wanted, but put him where Frank Vetrano was with your first group.
Yeah.
With Zegras and Terry. I mean, he's got 2 years left at 8.7 mil.
I guess I should pipe down the Laine slander a little bit. Like, he was really bad last season, but he's been much better. Like, he's better than any of these other guys we've been talking about.
If you could get him for, let's just say, future considerations, a sixth round, maybe you get paid to take his 8.7 mil.
Yeah.
For the next 2 seasons.
That's the hang up though. It's the 2 seasons at that number.
But I think the Ducks are in a spot where they could handle that easily for this.
They could, but it's an opportunity cost. Like,
sure,
you could do something else with that doesn't carry the same risk.
The question, but the other side of it is that you're gonna get paid as a result of that.
Well, you're not really getting paid a lot though, from what it sounds like. Like, what are you getting paid?
I think if you're taking on that full cap
second,
yeah, at least for 2 years.
Maybe a first round pick.
I think a first, like that, like 8.7 for 2 seasons.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like that's a very big chunk for Columbus to move on from. I guess where the Ducks are at, taking a flyer isn't the worst thing in the world. You know, bringing a guy, like, there's definitely a case for Patrick Laine. Bringing a guy who's motivated to kind of turn things around. Maybe he kind of finds some chemistry with some of the younger players, being a shooter. There's certainly a case for it. Like, I'm not saying that it's like a purely bad move, but I think there's also a downside to it too. Like, there is a chance that it doesn't work at all.
Sure. And that's the benefit of it just being 2 years. Yeah.
So I don't know what I honestly just don't think the Ducks would want Patrick Laine. That's part of it too for me. I have a hard time seeing that guy being someone that Pat Verbeek and Greg Cronin are looking at and saying, yep, that's a guy we want to bring in and occupy that much cap space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, worst case scenario, you buy him out next summer.
Sure. It just feels like a lot of work for that.
Sure.
I don't know.
No, that's why I've typically ended up in the no camp for acquiring him. But I don't think it's a hard no.
It's not a hard no, but I've never gone down this rabbit hole recently and come out with yes.
Yeah,
it's always a slight no. And like, I honestly, like, I think back to the Patrick Laine early in his career, and I'm like, that player was awesome. I don't know if that player is ever coming back, but if you can get a shade of him, that would be a good outcome. It's just what is the probability that that happens, I guess.
Yeah.
So
want to get to questions?
Yeah, we somehow are 50 minutes in.
I don't know how we do this.
I don't know.
I literally don't know how we've made it this long talking about what we've talked about. But
strong poll.
That's how you know we have a good time with this.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to start with questions from our Discord. Go to patreon.com/crashthepond. If you support us at the $2 tier, you get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord where you can ask questions in there. There's a whole chat in there that's just a really, really fun time. So we're going to start there. Stan said, what will the opening night roster look like? And do you think it will be fun to watch? Last year was a 2 out of 5 for me in terms of excitement. So we already broke down the forwards. Give me your prediction on the defense.
Ooh, okay. So just for completeness here, I think that the version I said with Strome as the center is probably the likeliest opening night lineup as of right now. Okay. Maybe you swap a Harkins with like a Colangelo or a Regenda, someone who has like a good camp, but eventually goes back. Defense, Fowler, Zellweger.
Okay.
Minchukov with Radko Gudas. And then third pairing, Lacombe and Dumoulin. Yeah. I don't know who's playing on what side. I don't think the Ducks seem to really care about that either. And then in net, John Gibson.
I think Dostal starts.
I don't think we're there yet.
But one thing I wanted to mention, I know that Verbeek had said a top 6 forward and a top 4 defenseman. I think he does deserve credit for getting a top 4 D-man in Dumoulin.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Robby Fabbri is top 6. I was like, where is this going?
No. But I think he does deserve some credit here for Brian Dumoulin. He is the fringe of that, but he is a 4th D-man to me.
Well, he also said a top 4 right shot.
Fair.
Which he is not.
He is not. But he did get a top 4 D-man, in my opinion.
Jeff brings up in our chat, which I think I should mention, is that the Ducks really want Tristan Luneau to make the team.
Yeah.
I think that he will make. So maybe you swap Lacombe with Luneau, and you have Dumoulin, Luneau on the third pairing.
It's possible. I think Luneau is most likely a goal just to get him some games. After
I think he's going to be a goal no matter what. I think that he may start the season with the Ducks, but he's going to, like, I am planting my flag and I am like driving into the ground. He will play with the goals this season. He should play with the goals this season. Yeah.
And then Stan also asked, do you think it'll be fun to watch? I'll go yes. Who are they opening the season against again?
I don't know.
San Jose.
Oh, that's right. I mean, that'll be really fun because the improved Sharks lineup, Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, and then the additions they've made.
Oh, man.
And then the orange versus the teal, that kind of color matchup, like that could be really fun. And, going back to the lineup thing too, like Zegras, McTavish, Terry is going to be a good time. That's going to be fun to watch no matter what. And then, Zellweger and Minchukov out there, like it's going to be like the Ducks have at least mastered the art of giving people hope in the first 2 weeks.
The Ducks are starting with a back-to-back Saturday, Sunday of San Jose, Vegas.
That's fun.
Yeah, that'll be a good time.
Yeah.
But let's see. So yeah, it will be a fun time. Shake and Wing said favorite signing and trade so far this offseason.
Is that about the Ducks?
I don't know.
There's not a lot to choose from. Okay.
If we're talking the Ducks, I'll go the trade's the Dumoulin trade. The signing is the Harkins signing, I guess.
I mean, I don't know what you have to choose from.
I guess the Leeson re-signing? I don't know.
My favorite thing that's happened this offseason, and I still want to dive into this, but I haven't yet. We will at some point on the Patreon probably, but just whatever the Capitals did, whatever the hell they did, just give it to me. Just throwing
the Chikrin trade.
All caution to the wind. All caution to the wind. Like Mangiapane, Dubois, getting Chikrin, getting Matt Roy.
I feel like the Chikrin trade hasn't gotten enough publicity, but it's somewhat hilarious that we went a good year and a half to 2 years of him trying to get out of Arizona and goes to Ottawa and then just gets flipped and kind of feels like it happened so quietly after it being so loud.
And how many times did we project a Chikrin lineup with the Ducks if they hypothetically trade him?
Also, this is the second time this has happened to Ottawa where they traded for someone and then flipped them after.
The Brinket.
like DeBrincat and now Chikrin. Like
I
maybe
mean
they should.
that's the downside of these deals. I mean, that's why teams don't make these deals, is because if you trade for a guy like that in that age window and he decides he doesn't want to sign with you long term, I mean, you're kind of stuck.
Yep.
Like you kind of have to do it. So I respect it. I think that it's an aggressive strategy, and there's just going to be times where it doesn't work out. But yeah, the Capitals just, again, no clue really what they're doing. But and also they got Logan Thompson in net. Like, I am just here for it.
Yeah. Salani Sandwich said, "What are you concerned about most and excited about the most for this upcoming season?"
Bottom six. It's just we talked about it for like 25 minutes, but that bottom six is just like a Rubik's cube, and I just don't know if anyone has a good solution right now. So, what's the exciting thing?
The defense.
Yeah,
I think the defense looks actually like it could be really, really fun. Like a full
they
season
solidified
of
it.
like a full season of Olin Zellweger and Pavel Minchikov, adding Brian Dumoulin to add a like really steady, like good defenseman to this group. A lot like him and Radko Gudas on the same team is a really, really good outcome for this offseason. Like I think the defense actually looks really, really good. Like
Yeah,
the only weak link is potentially Cam Fowler, but I think you hope that in a lesser role with a different pairing, he's going to be able to bounce back after a rough season.
I still don't think that that's the lesser role thing is happening. I still think he's going to play like 30 minutes next season.
Okay, but I'm just saying from an optimistic standpoint, like they improve the defense, you're going to get more development, and hopefully the guy that was the worst out of the group improves by being put in a better role for him.
Well, also, like, I mean, I was very critical of Cam Fowler last season, and I think that criticism was well founded. But there were some mitigating circumstances. Like, he was playing with rookies for most of the season. Rookies playing on their off wing, like it's
playing 26 minutes a night,
and his numbers weren't atrocious. Like, I think if you look at the Rapham chart, the goal impact was very negative, but we know that can be variance driven. The offensive impacts were not positive at all, but they weren't like catastrophically bad. And defensively, again, not great, not at all living up to his contract, but I think that he caught maybe a little too much flack last season, just a little bit. Like I think there's bounce back potential for Cam.
Well, that's why I think that if he is taken out of the 25 minutes a night and is put just in a
and that's the other
19 minutes.
That's the other factor too. Is he just that's not his fault that the coach is like, well, I'm just going to play you 30 minutes a game.
And I think by adding a Brian Dumoulin, like having like Fowler on one pair, Gudas on one pair, Dumoulin on one pair, that should spread out the minutes more. Because there shouldn't be a pairing that Greg Cronin will not trust.
Yeah, in theory, all three of those pairings should be solid.
Yeah. And so to me, that's what I'm most excited for. Sean 11 said, are there any game matchups you feel are can't miss TV? Example, Cutter's first game in Philly. I mean, I think that's the one.
I don't really have any, but I'm just going to be excited for the Sharks Ducks matchup because first off, good jersey matchup, which always piques my attention. And then I just think that these are two young, exciting teams. It's just going to be fun. And I think that like the Sharks fan base seems re-energized. I think that the Ducks fan base is energized by like the rebrand and the young players. So I feel like those games are going to be really fun.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Rooch said, how many man games on average will be lost to injuries next season? I hope not many.
Well, I don't know where the Ducks ranked in terms of injury luck last season, but I feel like they must have not ranked very high. So I feel like they might be due for some positive regression. That doesn't mean that they will not be injured, but maybe they're due for some of that. But good luck predicting injuries.
Yep. Duck Dragonaut said, if you could convince Pat Verbeek to just make one more move this offseason before locking in the roster we'll see in October, what would you have him do and why? Trade for Marty Necas.
So the one that I've been thinking about lately is Blake Coleman in Calgary. So, oh my gosh, CapFriendly just doesn't work anymore. It finally happened.
Did that just happen? I have it open right now.
I literally just clicked and I clicked on Calgary and it said, thank you. After 9 years of late nights, early mornings, missed holidays, and family events.
Oh man, it just went down. No, because it's midnight Eastern on The 10th. So the 10th must have been the shutdown date.
Wow. Dang.
Live on this podcast, CapFriendly went down.
Okay. Well, to Puckpedia I go, but Blake Coleman, like, I'm just wondering what Calgary is really doing because they traded Mangiapane, they traded Jacob Markstrom. It feels like they're maybe tearing it down. And Blake Coleman is still a guy that I think can contribute. And I think that he would really solve this kind of like third line issue that we've really been focusing on this podcast. So, like, his numbers on a bad Calgary team last season were still very good. And I know he's a little older and I think he has some contract left, but I am, that is a guy I'd be targeting. I don't
Well,
even
he feels like a Verbeek guy, and he feels like a
it's
Cronin
realistic.
guy.
I honestly think that Coleman is probably more enticing for them than a Martin Necas at this point.
Probably.
Just knowing what they like.
4.9 million going into year 4 of 6, so 3 years left on the deal.
3 years, it's not nothing, but that's a contract that I feel like you can live with personally. 32. Yeah. And just kind of solves, again, this, like, if you can add Blake Coleman into that picture as your third line center, doesn't everything just look that much better?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it makes the Ducks a playoff team, but it just feels like the roster balance is so much improved.
Yep. All right. So let's keep getting through these questions. Floyd Gondoli said, is Solberg going to get what he needs in terms of development in the SHL? It's a step up from Norway, but is it good enough?
Yeah, I think the SHL is a great league. I mean, arguably it's the second best league in the world after the NHL. It's a good league. It's a huge step up from Norway. Yeah, I have nothing but good things to say, and I think it's a great spot for him.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's going to be a situation where they're going to kind of go against the Ducks' wishes. Like, most of the time, the SHL team, the Ducks will be probably talking with them and making sure kind of what Solberg needs, he's getting. And if that ends up not being the case, then there probably will be a change at some point.
Yeah, I think that the plan is probably a year in the SHL and then probably come over to the AHL after that.
Yep.
So,
Lied to Bastard said, how was your day?
Busy day.
Yeah.
As Jake posted in our Discord, I was shoveling food down my gullet like 2 minutes before the podcast. So
yeah,
busy, but busy is good.
Yep. Drake Duquesne said, which Ducks player has the biggest breakout season?
Well, the pick that I'm going to go with and I'm going to stick with is Trevor Zegras. I still don't think he's broken out in the NHL, and I want to see it happen.
I would agree with that, but just to be a little bit different, I'll go with Leo Carlsson from the perspective of, I think people thought he had a down, some people outside of the Ducks community think he had a down rookie season without really understanding how he played and what he did as an 18-year-old. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's going to have a breakout from that perspective and become a star.
I think that would be very much welcome by people.
Doom Grouser said, what's your best and final trade offer for Patrick Laine? Columbus gives the Ducks a first-round pick.
I'm just not paying for Patrick Laine.
Yeah. Dalton Key said, what is your outlook on the roster as it is today versus the roster at the start of last season?
I think it's better because I think that now I have a greater optimism for Leo Carlsson. I have a greater optimism for Pavel Mintyukov that I didn't have a year ago. I have a greater optimism for Olen Zellweger. It's not necessarily a huge step up, but I have a lot more confidence about individual parts of the roster. Does that line up with your view?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Olaf is Berserker said, if you weren't a fan or a follower of a team and you were just getting into hockey, which team do you think you would pick to follow and why?
Huh. That is a good question.
I probably...
Did you just sing there?
No, maybe.
You hit a note.
Wasn't trying to. I'd probably do Colorado, to be honest.
Wow. Bandwagon-y.
Kind of. I just think they
Florida?
play really fun hockey.
Florida?
Bandwagon-y.
They just won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Damn it. I was going to click on CapFriendly again. This is really, this is going to throw me off for a bit. Well, I like red. I like the color red. So that rules out everybody in the Pacific. Rules
Not
out
Calgary.
Oh, that's true. But they're like a McDonald's red with the yellow, and they're also bad, so I wouldn't root for them. You
I
know
mean,
what? I think because I live in the Bay Area, I'd probably pick the Sharks
I
because
mean, I
they're fun right now.
which works for you because you're not a Sharks fan. I mean,
Yeah.
also for me, it would probably be the Ducks also just because their logo is the best right now.
Okay, well you can't pick your own team.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't say that specifically. He just said, who would you pick if you weren't a fan of a team?
I think that assuming that I'm still like a diehard hockey fan, but just don't have a team, which I literally can't picture in my head. But
Same.
I think I would just pick the local team and pick the Sharks. But
Yeah. BPH said, do we think we have too many people penciling in Cutter as a top 6 player with one NHL game under his belt? The team made the same mistake with McTavish at age 19, and I'd say a safer and more reasonable approach would be start him down in the lineup.
so that is a great question. And I think that we kind of addressed it to a degree earlier. I do think, though, that those situations are somewhat distinct. Think back to Mason McTavish's development arc and the way that his development seasons were impacted by COVID-19. And you look at Cutter Gauthier, who got to play a full season of college. Actually, sorry, two full seasons of college hockey. And just I think is more mature in his game overall than McTavish was when he arrived. So yeah, I think that it's fair to have some reservations about just assuming he's going to be a first line guy by our projections. But I think that he's a lot more NHL ready than McTavish was at that time. I think honestly, what he's saying is exactly right for McTavish because people just assumed McTavish was ready because he just looked like a man, but he wasn't ready.
Here's the issue with the McTavish part of it is he was in his draft plus 2, I think, when he played his first full NHL season, right? Because draft plus 1, he played his 8 games, got sent back down, went to junior. Then draft plus 2 came up and played, and then last season was his draft plus 3, where he was fully established in the NHL, and that was where he was from. And granted, had a full NHL season under his belt, but still was at that age. Cutter Gauthier is at the same age that McTavish was at last season.
Yeah.
So it's not an apples to apples with looking at McTavish at 19 just because of the age that Cutter Gauthier is.
Also, Cutter Gauthier is 20.
Exactly.
Like, he's coming into the NHL. Again, I think it's completely reasonable to have some pause there, but I think it's a different scenario a little bit. And I do think that the transition from a couple years of college is just smoother for a lot of guys than some junior
we
players.
saw that the Ducks tried to mimic a college schedule with Leo Carlsson in some ways, get the best of both worlds. And so, yeah. And you look and see what Jackson Lacombe did last season. He played.
Looking at Cutter Gauthier's Elite Prospects page and the logo on his picture is the new Ducks logo.
So much better.
Feels nice.
So much better. All right, so we're going to get to a couple Twitter questions, and then we're going to hit up Twitch and YouTube, and then we'll get on out of here. Clark said, I have a question for the pod. If you're taking any questions, with the amount of left-hand D, can you identify anyone that might fit the right-wing bill through a trade besides Natchez? Also, what would a trade look like? I mean, Natchez is the only right-winger, I think, out there right now.
Yeah, like a right-winger?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was honestly off the top of my head, that's the only guy.
I mean, Mitch Marner, is he right wing?
Do you think he's getting traded this offseason?
No,
oh my God, I typed in CapFriendly again. Make it stop. My tweet is actually, I don't think people noticed it. My tweet is actually picking up some steam. I tweeted about it.
Yeah, we legitimately, it was 9:00 on the dot. You noticed it.
That timing could not have been any better.
Yeah.
Maybe now I'll be famous.
We got this question now from Trevor Zebra saying 2 questions. The 2026 offseason has Zegras, Carlson, Gauthier, Zellweger, and Minchikov all expiring. Of these 5 players, which player do you think get a bridge deal, which get a long-term deal, or which are dealt?
I feel like Minchikov and Zellweger will both get bridge deals.
I think Gauthier also. I think Carlson would be the only one out of that grouping of younger players to get a long-term deal.
Honestly, it's just so hard to say because we don't have a great sample with Fabri and RFAs.
Yep.
Because yes, we've seen him do it, but I feel like Zegras and Drysdale were. There's 2 things there. One, Zegras and Drysdale kind of had their hangups, and also they weren't Verbeek guys. Didn't draft them, didn't acquire them, and I feel like Gauthier, I could honestly see him giving him the big 8-year deal because he probably loves Cutter. We know he loves Cutter Gauthier.
I think I think it's going to be a bridge for almost everyone coming off their first deal besides maybe Leo Carlson.
I think that for Gauthier and Carlson, especially Carlson, I think it would be a mistake to give them a bridge deal. I think with Minchukov and Zellweger, less of a mistake, but still very wary.
I think Gauthier will want a bridge deal also.
Maybe. I mean, we don't know. We honestly
because the fact that he came out and signed to get the 1 year down and get that off, I think he's going to want a bridge deal to have more to be able to make more on a long-term deal.
Maybe. Or maybe, I mean, you never know. Like if someone puts 8 years of millions of dollars in front of your face, we'll see.
Fair. And then on Zegras, I hope long-term. So we'll go with that.
Yeah. I was going to ask, are there really any examples of a young player getting signed to 8 seasons and it just like completely not working out? I feel like generally these deals work out. And I guess maybe some of them were just not far enough into it to really know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, the good thing with these deals is you can buy them out and it's only 1/3 the contract value. If it truly is that bad, because I think it's under 26, you can buy it out at 1/3 instead of 2/3. So there's that side of it also.
Yeah.
And then he also said, should the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year be renamed to the Solani? There's already a Calder for the AHL, and this would pay respect to Teemu for a record that will never be broken of 132 points as a rookie.
I'm not a fan of changing the trophy names. They're just they're old and they kind of have weird backstories. Just keep it that way.
Yep, I would agree. All right, we're going to hit up now questions from Twitch and YouTube. Go to twitch.com/crashthepond, where if you subscribe to our channel, if you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month, and it does help out more than you can imagine. And you get special emotes in the chat, special badges next to your name. And last week, I forgot to give a big thank you to Elden Lord Brian, who subscribed to us with Prime for the first time. So thank you so much for that. Or if you're listening to this and you have a YouTube account, and yes, I know everyone does, go check out our YouTube account, or YouTube channel, youtube.com/crashthepond, where you can catch us live streaming over there. Check all of our videos on demand there. Subscribe to our channel, like our videos. Let's get a little like spike right now, please, to boost us up. And it helps out more than you can imagine, gets us up a bit higher, and helps out with just everything. And so we had this question. I'm going to hit it up first from Ronald McDonald earlier in the chat, and I bookmarked it for myself to go back to. He said, hello, Jake and Felix. It's nearly midnight here. Wondering if you could come back to my questions. Who will be the next 100-point scorer for the Ducks, and what do Dostal and McTavish's next deals look like?
Dostal and McTavish. So honestly, I think McTavish is going to get the 8 years.
I think McTavish will get a 3 times 6.
Okay.
3 times 6. Dostal, I could see getting an 8 year.
No, I actually don't. Okay. No, not a goalie. Goalie's not getting 8 years.
5?
Yeah. Whatever takes him into like a year left before UFA. He's a UFA in 27, 28. So yeah, I guess he would have a 2-year deal then, or a 1-year deal. Maybe you do sign him for like 4 years, buy up some of those years. I don't know. Honestly, he's kind of a weird one.
And then next 100-point player, Carlson.
Beckett Seneca.
There it is. Bold take.
I'll just go completely off the script here.
B-Dolls mentioned Kokoniemi is a guy that 8-year deal is going to look bad for.
That is true, although his cap hit is still like, I mean, they gave him an 8-year deal, but the cap hit is pretty minimal. So even then, I agree that one, like 4.8 mil, he has 4 years left now. Like, it's not great, but I feel like that's not an albatross contract. Like at 4.8 mil, you're paying him to be a bottom 6 guy. So
Austin Price asked us, what would be considered a successful season? Getting out of the bottom 5, bottom 10?
Getting out of the bottom 10 would be a huge success, because at that point you're flirting with like the middle of the pack.
I think a successful season would be around 80 points.
I think if they can get out of the bottom 5, that would be a success.
Yeah, I'd agree. Daniel Lowry said, thoughts on New Era becoming the NHL hat supplier. Thank God. The Fanatics hats are like, I'm not trying to shit on Fanatics here. I'm going into
Yes,
the
you are.
jerseys with an open.
Yes.
I'm actually not, because I'm going into the jerseys with an open mind. I think they're getting shit on too much with a bunch of things. They need to fix their shipping and everything like that. But like their hats just are always such poorly designed hats. Like the actual like like not talking about like shipping, not trying about anything like that. Just the actual hats themselves, they just don't fit well. The designs aren't great. And so the fact that New Era, who constantly just has great fitting hats, puts out really good stuff, like is taking it over, like just great news for anyone that loves hats.
Have you seen the I mean, we've all seen it, but like the Fanatics like Stanley Cup champion, conference champion
Yeah, they're
draft
bad.
hats?
They're so bad.
They're so it's like they didn't even try. Man.
Well, none of those hats are ever good. Like Reebok never did a good job with them. Like,
well, I think in the NBA, actually, I own some championship hats by New Era, and I think that they try a little bit. Like
no,
it
but
looks,
and
they look fun.
yeah, and by that I mean the Reebok hats are always bad. The Fanatics hats are always bad. They're always like that specific like they're not a snapback, but they're not fitted, and they are the curved brim, and they just don't look great. And it's like, give me some sort of snapback with a flat brim here. I love hats way too much.
I'm laughing at you, but also the reactions I'm getting from my tweet are really funny. You know the meme, like the famous picture of George Bush where he gets whispered into his ear that 9/11 has happened.
Yes.
So someone quote tweeted my screenshot of the CapFriendly thing shutting down, and it's a picture of the George Bush, and the caption is, "Sir, CapFriendly has fallen." just absolutely.
Man. Wait, you at least got a thank you. I didn't even get that. Mine just said the website's dead.
Oh, really? Holy crap.
Yeah.
So I actually got like a very small window of time where I could have gotten that screenshot.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, damn. They're also they gave thank you to people?
Yeah, to Frank Saravalli.
And the Steve Dangle podcasts, and also Evolving Hockey.
What is this meme of this dude with like a neck beard saluting? and then
Yeah,
and then
I'm getting this. The site cannot be reached.
Can someone explain? Can someone explain that meme to me? Because it is freaking hilarious. The screaming kid. I'm gonna put it in our Discord.
Okay. Connor said thoughts on Ducks development camp.
Sorry, I'm breaking down here laughing. Was
Any
not
thoughts?
there. Was not there. No thoughts.
No notes. Nasrina Prihati said, "Do you think we'll finally get a captain this season?" Yes.
Yes.
You are dead right now.
Yeah, I'm like tearing up right now.
Jake M said, "Not sure if you have time for this, but I'm wondering the what if game. What if the Ducks got the Bedard pick? How different would this team look, if much at all?" Significantly different. Significantly different.
Are we sure Connor Bedard will be a better NHLer than Leo Carlson?
Yes.
What is he, 5'10"?
Oh man.
5'9"?
Nasrina Prihati said,
I actually heard someone make this take on a podcast. Grant McHagg made this take, like
what?
without being facetious, and it was an impressive take.
Okay. Nasrina Prihati said, "I want to buy the OG jersey. Should I get the Adidas Team Classic or CCM? And how to spot a fake CCM jersey? I live outside the US, so my option is kind of limited. And fun fact, it's almost lunchtime there. So, well, I hope you have a good lunch."
Wait, where?
I don't know. Did not put in there, so let us know where you're coming from. But the OG jersey, it's tough. There's going to be a lot of fakes. I think making sure the colors don't look completely off. I don't know that much about the Adidas Team Classic, but I'm skeptical of any Adidas version of the OG jersey just because they didn't do that.
Well, it's just the CCM jersey. It's the same thing. Yeah.
I would say if you're going to do it, try to find something on eBay that looks authentic. That's probably your best bet to getting something that looks nice.
Yeah. If you can get like one of the starter jerseys or Nike jerseys.
Yeah.
Don't
get the Mitchell and Ness version. Do not get the Mitchell and Ness version.
Well, those are also just ridiculously overpriced.
They also look really bad. So yeah, if you can get to eBay, I'd say if you're willing to spend for it, going on eBay, finding one there that makes sense. Though that's your best option.
Yeah, or I think sideline swap is a good place, or OfferUp. I don't know if people actually are still using OfferUp, but anyway.
I am. I have used it
Oh,
this past weekend.
yeah, I was an OfferUp god during the pandemic.
There it
So
is. Yeah, we talked about it.
yeah.
Sparkman said, "Question for Felix: Thoughts on Felix feelings on Clay leaving the Warriors?"
Uh, well, I feel like this might kind of be how Ducks fans felt when Corey Perry left the team. Although not to the same, not exactly the same, but it's like I'm really sad because it's the end of an era and it doesn't feel right that it ended this way. But also, I think that this is best for the team. I don't know if that last part was true about the Perry situation, but I think the sadness was definitely there.
Yeah. So we'll get to this question, then we're going to end with some shit show and get on out of here. Austin Price said, "Will Gibson retire a Duck? There have been trade rumors for years, and I don't know if they will ever pull the trigger on a deal." I'm going to go with no. He's going to see that if he sees his contract out, I think he'll go somewhere else after.
Yeah, I think at some point the Ducks are going to want to promote one of their younger goalies to be the backup. But I mean, again, that's all contingent on Lucas Dostal actually becoming that guy, which I know he just had a great season. And I know that the Ducks have said that they want to do a split and all of that, but like he actually has to go and do the thing. Yeah. And so until he's done it, like I think I wouldn't write off John Gibson quite yet in this team's long-term plans.
All right, now it's time for some fun, some shit show questions.
I don't think I can handle them right now. I'm just giggling at everything.
Yeah, which is why this is going to be great. Sean 11 said, "You're being attacked by an army of 3-foot Wild Wings, and you're armed with a hockey stick. How many can each of you take on before they overwhelm you?" I mean,
3 foot.
3 foot's like not that small.
I also feel like it'd be hard to like neutralize them with a stick because they're all padded up.
That's a good point.
Like I'd have to like trip them. Like I'd have to hook them or trip them.
Like if we're just talking about tripping and then they're down for the count, easy. If we're talking fully taking out, man, I don't think I could get out. Like I think I would get swarmed and just be done.
Well, the thing is that as soon as you focus on one, the other little wildling is going to jump up and grab you, and then at that point.
You have to do like a Darth Maul with your stick.
Yeah, you have to go for headshots here. I feel like you got to just go for the dome here.
I might go with 0, honestly.
Yeah, I don't. Also, like a stick is probably gonna break, and like if you're swinging it that hard for the head, like
that's a great point.
Like the hockey sticks are not durable anymore, so.
Yeah. Salami Sandwich asked us, this was last week, what beer is Jake drinking? I think on last week's episode, I had the Athletic Brewing, like, salt and lime cerveza. And then this week, I'm having a lime Topo Chico, a twist of lime, sparkling mineral water.
Oh my God, this next question is just too much work.
Bring Barry Holmes says, construct a Ducks roster with line pairings only using Discord participants. Save that for a Patreon episode.
Yeah.
Put that in patron suggestions. That we need time on that.
We have 100 and we have like 160 people in our Discord, so we have a lot to choose from.
And then Lou, I'm not reading your comment. It is not a question.
No, I want to air this.
And neither of those stink. And they are both fantastic, and they both could be supporters of this podcast.
So did you see Lou's tirade today against Costco?
No, I did not.
He made this whole fuss in our food and drink channel about how Costco is terrible because of people, being slow and all the people in there and like the traffic. And it's like, talking about how Costco on a Sunday is hell on earth, this and that. And it's like, first off, you don't have to go that day. Secondly, they have a delivery service. If you're that hung up on,
I use same day Costco all the time so that I can do stuff around the house.
I was reading their FAQ and they waive the delivery fee if it's over $75. So,
and you also, if you have an Instacart Plus account, you get like a discount on it also. Like you aren't paying that much extra for delivery. You're paying the tip and that's it.
Yeah, Lou was accusing me of having like stock in Costco, and that's why I was fighting him so hard. But what was his like issue with Costco? So I'll literally read you the transcript. This is Lou at 11:23 a.m. today, which also, by the way, like a Tuesday morning at Costco is just not a busy time. So I'm already throwing just like a whole lot of skepticism on this account. But he said, just braved Costco. I loathe that place with a lot of O's. And then I responded, Costco is fantastic. And then he replied, it's not. Get rid of those useless ass samples. They literally had they literally they literally had tortilla chips for a sample, and there was a line blocking the aisle I needed to go on. Frustrating.
I'm just gonna tell Lou this: you can
Hold
walk
on.
past that aisle, go down, and come back.
I mean, I will say a cup for a tortilla chip is a pretty funny visual, but it's like,
oh,
dude,
I've seen it. I've seen it.
it's like just, and then I responded, what a horrific stance. And then he responded, you don't need samples. You really don't. And then I said, downlift Lou to the moon. To which he responded, if you have to have a tortilla chip in a paper cup, you need to take a long, hard look at yourself in the mirror and reevaluate things. Oh, so yeah, those are just a lot of like terrible things to say. Just very terrible things to say. Costco is great.
Costco is great.
They're trying to help you save money. Like you're saving money. Like if you just got the regular membership and only used it for gas, I think you would actually come out in the positive because of the savings on gas.
And here's the thing, like, you don't have to get the samples. You can walk right past them. I'm someone that typically does not get the samples. Like, I don't get them. I don't care too much to grab them. Great for people though. And you can always find a Costco that's less crowded. I'll say this. I'm equidistant between two Costcos. One of them is bigger and typically more crowded than the other one that's smaller. I go to the smaller one. It's great. It's less crowded. I've gone on a weekend and it's not horrible.
Like, and then this was, so he actually had a hat trick today of bad takes. He said at 6:15 p.m. today, Spotify isn't worth it. Clunky interface. Not worth premium. Don't get duped. Don't get duped by mediocrity.
I love Spotify. It's been like lagging on me somewhat the last like couple weeks.
But it's still a great product.
It is fantastic. Like, it is a industry changing product.
Yes, it's so much better than Apple Podcasts. Like,
I just meant in general for like music and everything like that. Also,
I know, but before we really only had Apple Podcasts for like, oh God, what was the other one that we used to have the podcast on? There was like a third one. You know what I'm talking about though? It had like little stripes in its logo.
It was where we used to upload to.
Was it? Right? No, I don't think we uploaded there. Anyway, oh crap. It's going to come back to me like as soon as we stop recording. But anyway, Spotify just like made those obsolete for me, especially Apple Podcasts. Apple Podcasts is clunky.
It is not good.
Some people love it. Like there are still people that I know that swear by Apple Podcasts, and and also Spotify offers a student discount, so $5 a month.
Yeah, and they also offer family discounts if you and other loved ones want to get it. You can share it.
I mean, people are saying the company's bad. I'm just talking about the product. I have not done the research in the company, but the product is very good. And then Lou also said,
this has now just become, it's gone from shit show to just dunk on Lou.
He said, so today he was bashing on gaming PCs, where he basically said that consoles are superior to PCs. And he said, no need to buy thousands of dollars worth of computer parts when I could just buy a console that's cheaper to game. And he said, hey, if you want to take out a loan to play a video game, don't let me get in the way, with 3 laughing emojis, cat laughing emojis.
I mean, you can build a computer for relatively cheap.
I built my PC for, I think, $1,200. And that will last me longer than like generations of consoles.
I built the PC I'm using right now that I built for this podcast, I think for $400. And granted, I've upgraded it somewhat since then. I added a new graphics card for like $200.
You can play around with it.
But you can also upgrade your computer over time. You can't upgrade a console. And like, I love consoles.
You're stuck with it.
I still love getting a console. I think there's something about playing on the TV. But I mean, there's a beauty to both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can just enjoy both.
Well, because we were talking about the new game, NCAA football, that's coming out. And they're not releasing it on PC, which is very annoying because that means I'm not going to play it. And then I was like, well, they should. And then he said, nope, like saying PC is bad. He said, keyboard and mouse is too restricting. It's like, dude, you can use a controller on PC.
I use a controller whenever I game on PC.
Yeah. So anyway, it's impressive that he had 3 just like objectively awful takes
It
that
was a Lou hat trick.
that I think he legitimately believes in each. So I just don't think there's a negative take you can have about Costco. I really don't.
Ooh, let me ask you this really quickly before we get going.
Uh-huh.
By the time we next record, the Euros will be over and the Copa America will be over.
Yeah, Canada lost.
Two semifinals have been completed. One in the Euros, one in the Copa. So the 3 remaining teams in the Copa America are Argentina, Colombia, and Uruguay. Who do you think wins the Copa America?
I mean, I have no clue, but I'll say Argentina.
I'm going to go with Uruguay.
Okay.
I'll go with Uruguay. And then in the Euros, it's Spain has already advanced. And then tomorrow, it's England versus the Netherlands. Who wins?
You know what? I say England does it. I say they do it.
I think England does it, and it will be hilarious because this like English team has been so uninspiring. They've played garbage football. They've just like somehow made it there on like the skin of their teeth. And it would just be like the most like hilarious thing if like this is the year that they win.
Well, because the year where they lost in the final, which I think was a couple years ago,
4 years ago, last Euros,
they were actually really good, and up until that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be really funny if that script got flipped. I think
it means more Gareth Southgate, which would be hilarious.
Yeah, just interesting times. Also, the Olympics are coming up.
They are. It's a wonderful summer.
Yeah. So we're entering the dead of the offseason. Hopefully we'll have more to talk about, more Ducks news, but I wouldn't necessarily bank on it. Still waiting on Jackson Lacombe to sign.
Yeah. Not sure when we're going to go live next. We haven't really talked about our summer schedule as of now, but
we will take a break at some point.
Yeah.
We always do take a break in about August.
That break may or may not be coming. We'll figure it out.
Oh, Jake just wants to cold turkey it.
We're going to be doing Patreon episodes. We'll see. We'll see if there's something. Keep an eye on our Twitter accounts.
Yep. So if you want to support the podcast, really easy way to do that is to go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashthepond. For $2 a month, you get access to our patrons only Discord server, which we reference at least 1 million times per podcast. It's just so much fun. We spend all of our waking hours in there. It's true. And it's just so much fun. A lot of great Ducks discussion in there. So go check it out. You can also upgrade that pledge to $7.50 a month. So on top of the Discord, you also get access to 2 bonus podcasts a month where we go further into different Ducks topics, talk about league-wide stuff. We're going to do an episode at some point looking at every UFA signing that happened. And so that should be fun. And on top of that, you also get access to exclusive player breakdown videos. So I've been putting up videos, basically just prospect breakdowns. So I've got 3 up right now, like on the guys that the Ducks drafted, but there's a bunch of videos from the guys. There's 5 on Beckett Seneca. There's 3 on Stian Solberg. I've got 1 up on Maxime Massé. So you can really learn about these prospects. Just go to patreon.com/crashthepond and you're helping keeping this thing going. What can be better? If you don't want to do that, or on top of that, you can also go leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcast. Yes, you don't have to use it. Just parachute in really quick, leave a review, get out. It just takes a couple of minutes. It's actually really easy to leave a review. I left one last week on another podcast.
You can also leave a rating on Spotify. We don't mention that all the time.
Yeah, and you can go on Spotify if you don't have Apple or you want to do Spotify as well. Leave us a rating, and you can also leave us feedback there, which we always appreciate hearing from you guys there. Check out our YouTube channel. Just search Crash the Pond on YouTube. Find us on social media on Twitter. That's really a great way to keep up with what's going on with the podcast. Check out the website, crashthepond.com. At some point, we're going to have to update our merchandise to reflect the rebrand. I don't know how, but we'll do something.
I mean, actually, I feel like our current merch fits still.
You can see in the video if you're watching, but Anaheim Vibes Hockey Club, it's still going. We've still got the shirts.
It's also fairly easy for me to just recolor it, so I could just do that.
Great summer shirt, I will say.
Yeah.
I will say that the palm tree with the hockey stick and the vibes, you can wear it to any backyard barbecue or social outing, and people will think you're cool. People will think you're a really admirable person if you wear that shirt. So go to our website and buy one. On that note, thank you for listening, everyone. This was a blast, and we'll talk to you next time, whenever that may be.
Bye.